What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to Aram with the $10 donation via the PayPal. He says, quote, the basketball content you put out is something I always look forward to. Whether it's old school or new school, it's all excellent. Best hoops channels. And I guess he's talking about Too Raw for TV and Too Raw for sports. I mean, I don't know about it being the best channel because, you know what I'm saying, there are channels out there that do a much better job than me in breaking down games, being more as far as X's and O's. Um, you know what I'm saying? I think that there are better channels out there than mine. I just try to stay in my lane when it comes to the historical aspect of it. You know what I'm saying? But I do try to absorb knowledge from other channels and try to make my channel even better by listening to other people who uh, bring a lot other things to the table than me. You know what I'm saying? So, if I've gotten better over the years because of that, then it comes from being humble and not thinking you know every damn thing and just trying to improve on what you do. You know what I'm saying? But thank you, you know what I'm saying, for that note, man, and thank you for the donation. And I want to thank everybody that donates to this channel and has supported this channel over the past couple of years. And to anybody that wants to donate to this channel, you can do so in the links in the description box below via the PayPal or the Cash App or in the pinned comment in the comment section. Now, this is something I want to talk about because I've been noticing this. Wanted to wait a while, kind of want to wait a little bit longer because I don't want this to be one of the situations I do this video and then over the next goddamn week, 5 motherfuckers score 50 points and then my video looks stupid and shit. But it's been 20 something games now. So I feel kind of confident in doing this video. And that is the disappearance of all of these 50-point games. We're not seeing it. We're not seeing all of these super duper 50-point triple doubles, 15 threes made, 25 free throws attempted, 60-point performances anymore. We've only had one 50-point performance with almost a quarter of the season done. And that was Steph Curry's 50-point game earlier this year. Matter of fact, I believe the second highest point total in the game was Steph Curry's 45. And we haven't had a lot of 40-point games this year, to be honest with you. I know Jordan B had 42 the other day. But we're not seeing all these big, huge scoring games. So why is that? And I have a two-word answer. Rule change. Something that I and many others have been begging for. Because we've been saying for some time with so much pushback from younger fans who thought we were just hating. When in reality, we were telling you what we saw in the past and we were comparing it to guys today who we knew had this been 20 years earlier, some of these dudes would not have been putting up the same numbers because of the way the game was played back then as opposed to how it was being played and called and officiated just last year and a couple years before. That's what we were doing. So we knew that a James Harden would probably be a guy coming off the bench. He'd be a great six man back in the 90s, a great six man. Uh, Averaging 36 in the 90s? No, it wasn't going to happen. Dame Lillard in the 90s? I see Dame as a guy averaging 19, 20 points per game in the 90s. And I'm being dead serious when I say that because of the way that the point guard position was played back then. It was still more position orientated. Give you an example I'm talking about. In the late 90s, Gary Payton was the leading scoring point guard, usually averaging around 23, around 24 tops, and Stephon Marbury used to be criticized because this is how long ago the game was, how long ago it was. Marbury was criticized because he was a point guard who had obvious shooting guard skill and ability, but he didn't have the greatest uh, vision for a point guard. He could get assists, but they weren't, you know, kind of like the same way people criticize Westbrook to an extent. Yeah, he might average 7, 8 assists, but um, it was more like stat stuffing with him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a natural process within the flow of the offense like a Jason Kidd or a Steve Nash. But in today's game, I think Stephon Marbury, well, at least the last couple of years, he would have fit right in because all everybody would cared about was him dropping 30, 35, 40 points, but not really making plays around him better. So 20 years ago, or the late 90s, basketball was still more inside out. You look at the scoring leaders in the late 90s, if you look at the top 20 scoring leaders, probably about 14 or 15 of them right now. If you go Google 1999 scoring leaders, you look at the top 20, I guarantee you about 14 or 15 of them were front court players. Guys like Shaq, Karl Malone, and who else was playing? Sharif Abdul-Rahim, Antonio McDyess, Tim Duncan, David Robertson. I don't know if Kemp was playing that year. Maybe Sean Kemp might be up there. Or Vin Baker. So on and so on. You would see a whole bunch of post guys, and then some wing, and maybe a sprinkle of point guards. Maybe a Peyton, maybe a Marbury. You know, Iverson had just converted over to shooting guard after they jettisoned Stackhouse, but that's about it. Now it's the flip. Although we're now starting to see a little bit more post guys going up there. But anyway, I just wanted to note something here, right? So I'm going to go back 10 years ago, 2011, 2012 season. And that season, there were only 3 players that scored 50 points in a game, just 3. The top scoring performance was Deron Williams of the then New Jersey Nets, who dropped an NBA franchise record, 57 points. It used to piss me off because they kept saying it was a franchise record. I was like, no, because in the ABA, Dr. J scored 63 points for the Nets. So that's not the franchise. That's the NBA franchise record, but not the franchise record. So the next season, 2011, 2012, excuse me, 2013, once again there were 3 players who scored 50 points. That's it, 3. The top one being Steph Curry. I think there was a 54-point game against the Nets, a game that the Warriors actually lost. But I do remember him hitting 11 threes in that game. So next season, 2013, 2014, now the three-point ball is being shot a little bit more frequently. Uh, so now we see 6 50-point games that year. The top scoring performance being Carmelo Anthony, dropping a Knicks record 62 points at the Madison Square Garden, besting the previous mark 61 by Kobe Bryant. The next year, 2014, 2015, as the three balls being shot more and more, that's more points for a lot of these guys. And then you're starting to see more perimeter guys shoot the ball. You know what I'm saying? More and more uh, point guards scoring the basketball, not just being prototypical point guards who could score from time to time when need be when a situation calls for it, but guys who are scorers or these hybrid shooting point guards. We start seeing more of these guys. So now there's 8 50-point games in 2014-15 season. The top game being a 57-point game by Kyrie Irving. I think that was a win against the Spurs. Might have been an overtime game. 2015, 2016. Now there's 11 50-point games that season. 11 of them. The top scoring performance was Kobe Bryant in his farewell performance, which was a 60-point game against the Utah Jazz, last game of the regular season. Although it was a total team effort to get Kobe that 60 points because he was no longer the same player who could just dominate off the dribble and all that type of stuff. So it was force feeding him. He took 50 shots, but hey, he got his 60 points. The same game that Fatlock called hot garbage, because he's a fat hater. But anyway, 2016, 2017. All right. Now we're starting to see the shot jackers. Okay. That year there were 14 50-point games. 14 50-point games headlined by Devin Booker's just absolutely self-absorbed, selfish 70-point game, padding his stats in a loss, or not mistaken. The game wasn't even, if I remember correctly, the game wasn't even that particularly close, but he was stat padding his way to a 70-point game. So now we're seeing, like I said before, more and more of these games. The next season, 13 50-point games, and now the ball hog makes his appearance. James Harden, the top performance, 60. He had a top scoring performance that season. All right. The next year, there is an explosion of 50-point games. An explosion. There were 22. 22, the most in NBA history. If I'm not mistaken. No. I take that back. It's not true. I had to take that back. It's not true. I'll say this. It was the most in recent NBA history. Not you can't compare it when Wilt Chamberlain's playing. No, you can't say that. But it was the most in recent NBA history. 22 50-point games with James Harden scoring 61 twice that season. Oh, he had a plethora of those 50 and 60-point triple doubles. The next year, even more. 23 50-point games, highlighted by Dame Lillard scoring 61 himself twice that season. Now, last year the number dropped down a little bit, 14. Um, Maybe that's a little bit because of fatigue. I don't know. But it was 14 50-point games, highlighted by Steph Curry's 62-point performance last year. But so far, there's only been one, and that was Curry getting exactly 50 points. So I think it's the rule changes. And you look at the guys who were the main ones getting all of these 50 points and 60-point games, that are just all over these lists, taking advantage of the rules, the James Hardens, the Dame Lillards, the Trey Youngs, who's started playing better as of late, but he's having to shoot the ball more to get his points. Trey Young, he's having to shoot more to get his points, rather than just relying on freebies, free throws. Those guys, but in particular these two, are ones that have struggled in comparison to previous seasons. So me personally, shit, I love it. I like to see guys have to earn their points because, and it's not just the officiating, because Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, they're still scoring. Now scoring is down a bit. The league leaders in scoring right now are averaging less than 30 points a game and less than 29 points a game. That's fine though, because scoring is down actually this year compared to the last couple of years. Scoring on average per team is down 5 points. You know, I still think they shoot the three ball too much. Last I checked, each team is averaging 36 3-point attempts per game, which is an all-time record each year. For the last several years, we keep establishing a new record. I wish that there were more. Um, I wish that there was more variety, but that's what the NBA game is right now. Everything's been pushed out to the perimeter. But, you know, I like, I might be in a minority. I think Quest X agrees with me on this. I liked late 90s basketball. I liked when the final score was 81-79. I liked when defenses were more effective and not penalized. I do like the fact that uh, the officials aren't penalizing guys playing defense as much now. That with those bogus calls when a guy would offensive player would jump into you and get called when he's committing offensive fouls. I hate that shit. So I like good defense being rewarded. But hell, the '99 season, there was no 50-point games. In '98, I think there were only three, if I'm not mistaken. I think Shaq had a 50-point game against the Nets. I think Tracy Murray scored 50 points that season. Then with the Bullets, well, then the Wizards. I think they were just called they had just changed over to the Wizards in '97, '98. And I think the highest scoring game of that season, I think Karl Malone with a 56-point game against the Golden State Warriors. But that's normal. 50 points is a rarity. It's not something that happens all that frequently. Not in normal basketball terms. Not outside of the Wilt Chamberlain years. So this is more normal. This is a more normal environment. 50 points is something that should be rare and special. We shouldn't be looking at 50-point games the way we look at 40-point games or 35-point games. That's not normal. So, like how hitting 70 home runs or 60 home runs started becoming normal in the late 90s. That's not normal. So, I'm glad that all these 50-point games are no longer being put up, you know, as if it's, you know, something that should be expected. And if you want to say it's an indictment on these guys, that's fair game because Dame Lillard supposed to be a top 75 player. James Harden's supposed to be a top 75 player, you know, but now, in my opinion, the best Portland Trailblazer of all time is Clyde the Glide. Clyde legitimately was averaging 25, 27, in an era where they weren't shooting the three ball, you know. And the three ball is something that is much, much more vitally important for some of these guys to get their points. I'll give you one last example I'm talking about. Uh, Reggie Miller, okay? Before even Reggie, let me go before him. Let me see something right quick. Dale Ellis, right? Dale Ellis, who before uh, Reggie Miller was the all-time three-point king. Dale Ellis, 27% of his points in his career came from the three-point line. 27%. In 1997-98, that season when Reggie Miller passed Dale Ellis, all right, throughout his career, 30% of Reggie Miller's points came from the three-point line. The guy who surpassed him, Ray Allen, 2,973 three-pointers. 36.4% of his points came from the three-point line. Steph Curry, who's going to pass Ray Allen very shortly in regular season threes and become the first man with 3,000 three-pointers. 46.4% and climbing of his points come from the three-point line. So the three-point line has become very, very important to a lot of these great scorers. And as great as Steph Curry is, I always sing his praises. Um, it does show how important, but at the same time, I don't like using this word, but it also kind of shows how over-reliant a lot of these guys are on shooting threes. Dame, Steph, Lillard. Well, I already said Dame. Trey, uh, Harden. A lot of these guys are over relying upon that 3-point line. But it is what it is. Tell me what you guys think.